Шановні освітяни, укотре ви маєте можливість обирати, за якими підручниками навчатимуться ваші учні. Конкурс підручників уже розпочато, і невдовзі ви обиратимете навчально-методичне забезпечення для своєї школи. Видавнича група «Основа» цього року працює над 4 підручниками, зокрема з англійської мови. Пропонуємо вам дізнатися більше про цей підручник та оцінити його. Результати експертного оцінювання чекаємо вже на початку березня. Якщо наш підручник буде рекомендовано Міністерством освіти та науки України, ви зможете за нього проголосувати. Автори підручника – фахівці-практики, які мають багаторічний досвід викладання англійської мови не лише в Україні, а й за кордоном. Підручник побудовано з урахуванням часу, який передбачено для проведення семестрового контролю за аудіювання, говоріння, читання та письма. Акцент зроблено на реалізації компетентнісно орієнтованого підходу до навчання. Підручник цілком самодостатній. Потреби у використанні будь-яких додаткових матеріалів немає. Усі матеріали автентичні та сучасні, адаптовані відповідно до рівня вимог чинної програми з британських джерел – преси, радіо, інтернет-блогів, рекламних та інших оголошень. Виконання більшості завдань підручника передбачає застосування компетентнісного підходу, критичний аналіз певної проблеми, обговорення її в парі, групі або команді, пошук розв'язання проблеми та обґрунтування своєї точки зору. Онлайн-підтримка, яка надає можливість завантажити аудіододаток до підручника, а також виконувати тренувальні вправи та експрес-перевірку навчальних досягнень учнів у режимі онлайн. Інтерактивний додаток – це онлайн-тести за матеріалами підручника видавничої групи «Основа». Усі матеріали невдовзі буде розміщено на сайті bookosnova.com.ua у відкритому доступі. Онлайн-тести доповнюють можливість перевірки знань учнів в інтерактивному режимі. Ми не обмежуємося стандартними тестами. Серед варіантів завдань ви знайдете такі, як хронологія, відповідність, випадні списки, інтерактивні картинки. Завдання доповнено графічним, флеш, відео та аудіосупроводом. Проходження онлайн-тесту можливо як на стаціонарному комп'ютері, так і на пристроях персональної електроніки, планшетах та смартфонах. Ми надаємо можливість учителю вести статистику за відповідями учнів. Інтерактивні доповнення до підручника допоможуть у цікавій формі перевірити знання учнів з певної теми підручника. Усі тести складено відповідно до частин підручника. Кожне питання тесту вміщено в окремий блок, а кожен блок може містити додаткову інформацію. Це і графіка, і відео, і аудіосупровід, також флеш-додатки. Тож запрошуємо вас до користування. Чому слід обрати саме нас? Видавнича група «Основа» – це вибір учителів протягом 15 років, лідер на ринку педагогічної преси та навчально-методичної літератури. Ми забезпечуємо вчителів необхідною методичною літературою, гарантуємо якість та змістовність наших матеріалів. Надаємо повну інформаційну та методичну підтримку і гарантуємо доставку до кожної школи. Підручник на 100% практичний, сучасний, актуальний. За ним буде зручно працювати і вчителеві, і учню. Звісно, щоб обрати підручник, вам необхідно переглянути оригінал-макет. Очікуйте у вільному доступі з березня на нашому сайті osnova.com.ua або на сайті репозиторію repository.info.gov.ua. Нагадуємо, що всі необхідні посилання ви можете знайти під цим відео. Якщо у вас виникли запитання, телефонуйте до видавництва за телефоном 057 731 96 35 або за номером гарячої лінії 0800 505 212 безкоштовно з мобільних та стаціонарних телефонів України. Виникли запитання? Надсилайте їх на електронну адресу
Good morning, dear colleagues. I'm very glad to present the information that I'm going to present today to the renowned teachers of Odessa, of Rivne and Kropivnitsky. Today we are going to talk about competence-based approach in language teaching. But first of all, I would like you to give your responses about if you can hear me well, if you can see me well, so that no technical problems could prevent us from communicating. If everything is okay, then let's go on. What are we talking about? The competence-based approach, and here we have to understand that there is a difference between competence and competency. This is something that we have to understand. And we are going to talk about competence-based approach, which means that we are going to talk about the acquired ability to do something. That means that the acquired knowledge, the acquired skills that we teach our students and that they acquire during our teaching. What is more? So, what key competences for language teaching and for language learning do we know? Please mind that all the competences are marked with the phrase "are able to." This is the key idea of the thing. You remember the acquired ability. So the first one is the competence of value and sense, and this is practically the most important thing, not for the language teaching itself, but for the life as a whole. Because here, a person, a student, understands where he or she is in the world, what he or she is in the world, and respectively, what the goals for the future life, for the future activity may be. And this is definitely critical for both learning and for the life itself. The general culture competence requires knowledge and understanding of peculiarities of the cultures, because you know that in our days global world there is a mixture of cultures, and the idea is that the idea is that the students should be able to identify the differences and the similarities of the cultures. And what is very important, what is practically most important, we're talking about the values, the moral, spiritual values, and for a person, the spiritual values for a nation, the spiritual and moral values of a society, a community, and the stuff. Next is the thing that is practically, directly referring to our activity as teachers. So it's cognitive competence. And here, the students have to be able to set goals, first of all. To set the goals, what they want to do, what they want to achieve, and to plan the activities on the way to attaining the goal, to analyze what they are doing, to reflect on what they have done, and to self-assess and assess others. And this means that they have to be functionally literate, because they have to be able to tell facts from fiction, to be able to do measurement in a variety of styles and systems. This is something that is practically relevant not only for language teaching, but for any subject, any school subject. Next one is practically one of the most important things in today's world, and it's the ability to work with information. Here you can see that a person I would add that, to my mind, this is something that is critical, because whatever we do in the world, whatever, we basically get some amount of information, we search for some information, we analyze information, and we respond to the information. And it does not necessarily mean that it is only about language teaching. Not at all. It's about all life. And this makes us have our students understand and be able to first search for information and do it independently, to search for information that they personally need, to analyze the information they get, to select the information they need, then to organize the information that they get into the shape and into the form, into the format that is good for further activity, for further work with it. Then, if they want to transfer, to send it somewhere, to further it to someone or somewhere, they have to be able to transform it from one form to another one. For example, from the Microsoft Word format to a PDF format or a Microsoft PowerPoint format to make a presentation, or a Microsoft Excel whatsoever. So, and the ability to save and share the information. This is critical, actually, and you can see it is critical for the ability to successfully act in the modern nowadays world. The communicative competence is something that is very specific for us as language teachers. And here I would like to stress and point out that it does not necessarily refer to in foreign language teaching and foreign language communication. That refers to communication in general, as a whole. And this is the ability to communicate with people of variety of ages, of variety of positions, of a variety of distances, like communicating with classmates or communicating with pen pals from a variety of countries of the world, and the ability to communicate with the sources of information, because books, the internet, and the stuff are the things that we do communicate with. And in this respect, while working on a problem or something, or on some certain issue, our students should be able to work in pairs, groups, teams, and in a whole class. And while doing this, they have to be able to learn how to take various social roles in the group, like the roles of a leader, the roles of a speaker, the roles of a performer, and this stuff. And the last in this list, but not least, is that this refers to a foreign language and the 4 basic skills, because they all need those skills to perform successfully in a foreign language communication. The next one is social competence, which refers to them as part of a society. And here you can see that the students will be able to carry out various roles, as we do every day. Because in school we are teachers, we carry out the roles of a teacher. And when we get back home, we carry out the role of a member of a family, or a parent, or a child, or whatsoever. And this is something that we have to teach our students to do in our classrooms, to be able to take various social roles, to be ready for further activity, for further performance and successful performance in a society. And the last one, that is, but not least of course, is the competence of self-perfection. That means continuous study. And this probably is the most difficult thing to teach and to learn, to understand and to be able to study continuously, to understand that it is absolutely necessary for further communication, for further successful performance in life, not necessarily at school, but in life itself. And for this, we have to teach our students, for them to be able to rely on themselves, to regulate their emotions, to acquire the skills of self-study, and develop physically, spiritually, and intellectually. So this is something very briefly about the theory. Now I'd like to talk about the difference between the traditional approach and the competence-based approach in the classroom. What is the difference? Please have a look at the following table. As you can see, I'm not going to read it out. You can see it well. So you can see that the main difference is that in traditional approach we teach the knowledge about and the skills about the language. Like, for example, we teach them present perfect. And we teach the structure, we teach the auxiliary, we teach the form, have, has, the past participle, and the stuff. But it does not necessarily mean that they will be motivated to use it in real communication. Do you agree with me? They will gain some amount of knowledge about the language and some skills. They will be able to talk using present perfect. They will be able to identify present perfect in written language or in spoken language. They will be able to ask questions and give answers. That's okay. But it does not necessarily mean that they will be able to use it in real life situations. And differently from that, the competence-based approach dances from the point that the student should be able to use the language in a real life situation. That is why the key idea here is that the students are able to do something. Like, for example, talking about present perfect. Where do we use present perfect? To tell about the result, probably, yes? So probably the best thing to work with present perfect from the point of view of competence-based approach will be to teach our students how to make a phone call and tell about something they have lost. For example, something like that. And the main result will be that not that I know what present perfect is, but I know how to make a phone call, how to write a letter, how to write a postcard, and this stuff. And accordingly, the main process will be not reproduction, not filling in the blanks, not finding the answers in multiple choice questions, but some sort of production, because this real life always requires some sort of production. We produce every day. We produce something every day. And in this respect, the dominant component in the classroom will be changed. It's not the teacher who lectures, who instructs, but the student that learns independently and autonomously. And the assessment is done a little bit differently. It is done every day at every lesson, and the student is interested in seeing how he or she, how close he or she gets to the final point, gets to the goal. And for this, what is very important to sum up? So, traditional approach gives practically very little motivation or no motivation at all, because we teach what? And the competence-based approach implies a very high motivation to study, because it is necessary for solving a real-life problem. I can give you an example, a very brief example that I saw in my own eyes when I was in the United States. That was the 4th grade, and the subject was math, and they were learning how to count the areas of various geometric figures. They did not learn the rules. They gave the teacher gave them the task. So they had a small yard in the school, and the teacher said, "Okay, guys, you go down there. You want to plant a flower bed, for example." I'm not sure what it was. And for that, you go there, you make a drawing, you make a plan, you measure it all, and then you have to count how many flowers you will need. But for that, you have to count the areas of all those figures. And the students were really motivated to do that. And what's more important, that was very real, and they really planted a flower bed in that yard. And that was a real practical stuff, a real practical outcome of their learning. The next one, we're going to pay most attention to the motivation, because whatever teaching we're talking about, it is based on, to my mind, on two basic components, and those are critical thinking and motivation, which is based on students' personality. We all know that every one of you and every one of us has various backgrounds, has various experiences, has various opinions, and has various motives, has various values, has various beliefs, and they very often are different from each other. And this is why we have to understand that a student approach should be personalized. So we cannot ask the same question to a student who, for example, was growing in a poor family or a rural family, and to a student who, like, for example, was kind of a very rich businessman. You understand? Yeah. So the approach should be a little bit different, because they have different experiences, they have different backgrounds, they live differently, and they have different values. And we cannot say that we cannot address them according to the same values. We should personalize our approach. And for that, critical thinking is very important, because whatever we do, we use critical thinking. We analyze. Again, remember what I said about the information. We deal with information every day, and we have to be able to do that with whatever information, to analyze the information, to compare, contrast, support, and reject, and give reasons for our ideas. That is very important. So now we are coming to the practical section, but first we are going to have a little blitz contest. So you will have a very short question and 4 variants of answers, and the person that first answers correctly gets a prize. Okay, so here it goes. Please write down your comments, your answers. Well, which of the teacher's roles do you see more in a competence-based classroom? Which of them? Please, I'm waiting for your comments, for your answers. That's a little bit funny, but anyway. All right, so the first one, okay, and the correct one, the correct answer, of course, it is a constructor. And please, we cordially greet you, and we ask you to write down your email. So that is Natalia Koval, yeah? Thanks a lot. And you are going to receive a prize, and the prize is going to be a copy of the textbook for the 8th grade. Definitely it is a constructor, because we have to stay a little bit aside of the process and watch it. And as you know, the very common thing is facilitating. This is a very important word. We facilitate the process. We do not run the process, but we facilitate. We help it happen. Okay. And the next question for you and for me will be, how can we provide competence-based learning in a real classroom? So what practical ideas can we apply for that? Here first, when we plan a lesson, the question is, which of the goals, which of the teaching aims is the most important one out of the 4 basic ones? And the idea is that, of course, it is practical, because we are going to teach students to be able to do something practical. Definitely practical things, practical, of course, because you see, when we plan our lesson, we ask ourselves, what real life activities will students be able to perform? Will they be able to write a letter? Will they be able to order a meal in a restaurant? Will they be able to talk to a policeman, to describe a person to a policeman or something? Will they be able to make a phone call? And basing on that, we involve the educational aims. That means what language knowledge and skills will they need for performing those activities? And to develop them, what competences and skills must be developed for performing those activities? and the upbringing and that is personal, what personal competences and traits must be developed for that. This is very important because it is the key idea of any competence-based approach. So some practical aims, some practical advice. First, the cognitive processes for learning should be taken into consideration, of course. And here, the Bloom's taxonomy will help us a little bit and maybe will help us greatly, because the structure of cognitive processes is the same. It remains the same, and we cannot ask our students to apply something if they don't understand it or if they don't remember it. So when we plan our lesson, we should take into consideration that all the processes we use should go from the first point to the sixth one, and creating is the most important, but it is the final thing. Okay. The next thing it is 3 steps of a learning unit. That is something that we all know very well. We activate the previous knowledge and the present content. We cannot do without it. We structure the knowledge that we give, and then we apply the knowledge. And by structuring the knowledge, you see it is something that we remember, then we understand, and only then we apply. Okay? So, and here some practical advice based on the textbook for the 9th grades, on our textbook, something that I am very well familiar with, as you understand. So the first thing is we use practical real-life context. Absolutely no imaginary things. Try to avoid them. No something abstract. Something very practical, something really real life and challenging. And have a look. So it is lesson 4, and by the title of the lesson and by the picture, we imply the idea that what we're going to talk about. We say, don't say a word about it, but we imply the idea, and the students understand that there's going to be a talk about protecting the environment. So what do we do? We set the meaning of context in which we're going to work. Then the first thing that is necessary for doing any activity of the lesson, is warm up. So we warm up, but we don't warm up abstractly. We warm up in a meaningful context. So we ask them to do something referring and connecting to the topic of the lesson. In this particular case, make a rhyme, a short rhyme, using the given rhymes. Then we go on, and we encourage the critical thinking by whatever, analyzing, comparing, and whatsoever. And we exchange opinions by doing some group or peer work. And we activate the previous knowledge, as you can see, that it was given at the previous lesson, because at the previous lesson they were listening to a lecture, and the lecture was definitely concerning the topic. And here they have to share their opinions, and then we set up the area for meaningful research. So we have to sort out what kind of problems the problems spoken about refer to global, country problems, or local ones. The next one, you remember, that is reading, and we appeal to the personal background and values and experience and the previous knowledge. So, and you see it by the question, do you agree or disagree with the following note? And it refers to personal values, because somebody may agree, somebody may disagree, but anyway, they will have to voice their opinion. They will have to exchange their ideas, they will have to discuss and exchange. The next one, the next advice would be something that we work with, have been working with a lot. We enhance interaction by creating situations where, learning situations, where students will have to work individually, but more in pairs, teams, groups, or whole class. And the groups may be big, small, there may be peers, but anyway, whenever, better say, you have an opportunity, ask your students to comment on something, to interact. Do everything through interaction. And which is next, whenever possible, broaden the context, embed the task in global context. So talking from the local to global, from their neighborhood to the whole planet. A very important thing to talk about is using real-life samples from real-life teaching materials. There are a lot of teaching materials on the internet, and you can find them easily on any topic, adequate, authentic, and referring to the topic immediately. So here you can promote the learner's relevant response, and there, if you can see, the text is about trash in Britain. And it gives a lot of useful information, and it lets students compare what's happening in their own neighborhood, in their own country, in their own city, with something that is happening across across Europe, across the ocean, or somewhere else. A very important thing is providing students with adequate, with authentic, necessary information. And we have a look at the task here. Well, we appeal to personal background, and we use previous knowledge and use a cross-cultural approach because we have to compare something. Whatever is possible, use this approach to have our students compare, because it is a traditional thing and it implies critical thinking subconsciously. Because, for example, you know how the area of Ukraine is set on the official site of the CIA. It is set not as 637,000 square kilometers, but it is described as slightly smaller than Texas. And that gives much more information to an ordinary listener, an ordinary reader, an ordinary person, than that amount of figures that the person may not understand what it is about. And here you see it was important to provide the information which refers to the topic, some statistics. And every lesson in the textbook on any topic, it provides the "Did you know" section that refers directly to the topic and gives some statistics about it, about the English-speaking world, or about the world itself. And the last one, we're finishing the lesson. You remember it was a reading lesson. So, and the question is to summarize the whatever you have learned during the lesson by referring it to your personal neighborhood, to your personal background. Because what we do here, we encourage setting goals, because to do that, a student may set a goal and understand what and how he or she will do. To make decisions, what decisions they will make about that. So what should be done about that, and all this stuff. So the independent information search and something and something and something. I'm not going to read it out because you can see it well yourself. But this is it. Whatever is happening, if you know this, it refers to critical thinking first, to trying to motivate students to appeal to their personality, to their personal background, to them as people, to them as personalities. And that is why it works, it may work, and it will work. And the last two things that I'm going to, three things that to talk about. The first one is a little bit unusual for us, for our culture, but it's because it's not something that we normally do. Autonomous learning, independent learning. Here is some advice, maybe how we can make our students try to work autonomously. And that is, first of all, is immersing people in the language, in the area, by listening frequently, learning vocabulary, just in a smart way, because there are a lot of opportunities on the internet, and there is a lot of software that they can use for learning vocabulary. Funny, interesting, catchy, and that produces a lot more effect than just sitting before your vocabulary or before a dictionary and learning words. What is most important out of this is daring to make mistakes. This is something that you know our students, some or maybe most of our students are very much afraid to do. They're afraid to make mistakes. And if they learn and they understand that making mistakes is very natural for everyone, we all make mistakes, and they are not going to be afraid of making mistakes, that is perfect, because then they will not think about oh, I'm gonna make a mistake and that is why I will be punished for that. No, they will communicate, and they don't care about mistakes. By the way, a very good thing to tell them is that Americans and the British, the first, they make mistakes, a lot of mistakes themselves, and second, that they do not pay attention to how well a student uses vocabulary and grammar, as long as the message of what a person is saying is understood. This is okay. And the last two things that I'm going to talk about is rethinking the teacher's role. We talked about it already. Yeah. So the teacher is not instructor. The teacher is not the director. He is a guide, a facilitator. He's a mentor. So he helps process happen. Nothing else. Students do everything themselves, motivated, and you and we work and we monitor the process and we let them happen and we help it happen, but we never take the leading role in our hands again. And the last one about it is the assessment thing. It is a very tricky thing, as you know, but the idea is that the assessment should be done not of learning. So you learned okay, you get a 12. You learn poorly, you get a 4. This is not a good idea to do. And the assessment should show our students their success, how gradually they go up, how gradually they succeed. And in this respect, they won't be afraid of being assessed. And in this respect, it's very good to ask them, assess themselves or assess each other without teacher participation in it, and that will help, because assessment is not for grading a student but for giving the student the information how to succeed, how to work better, what to improve, what you need to improve to be successful. Thanks a lot. So our time is up, and I'm very glad that today we communicated together. And here is the chart that shows you the schedule of the webinars on that topic. Please tell your colleagues, join our webinars whenever possible. Thank you, and I'm eager to read your comments. You may send it to our moderators, and your comments will all be answered. Thanks a lot.